Hi, it's Julianne Youssef over here. Hi, Julianne.
Hi, Edith. Thank you for having me. Thank you for creating the summit and creating this platform for us to just connect and geek out about our professions and our careers and what we are passionate about. So thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I'm here, I'm just a facilitator and helping other business owners learn about branding and marketing and how can we generate amazing businesses and support others. So Julianne is a creative director and branding specialist, and elegant enthusiast and mood board master who inspires business owners and nonprofits to create high vibe logos and graphics they are proud of. As the founder of Johara, which translates to jewel, Julianne handcrafts design suits that illuminate a brand's best qualities. With a BFA from the University of Southern California, along with corporate experience working for brands such as the Cheesecake Factory, Julianne has 10 years of experience designing graphics that yield results. In fact, a Cyber Monday graphic she created for the Cheesecake Factory produced the highest sales conversion rate for a digital graphic in the history of the company. Wow, that's fabulous. Today, the multifaceted creative is helping coaches, chefs, small and large businesses, and nonprofits achieve graphic greatness. So welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Always feels a
Happy.
little weird for the self promoting time, right? It's like even though this is our work, it never like gets old, that kind of feeling. I guess it's just human nature, right? So but thank you. I feel
Yeah, yeah, we get to be our own cheerleaders when we are self-employed or entrepreneurs, business owners. We've got to, blow our own horn, and it's sometimes it's really uncomfortable when somebody else is talking about our achievements, but it's great, it's fantastic to have such an amazing uh, amazing background, amazing experience. So tell us, because you've been in this work for a long time, what makes a brand successful?
Authenticity, I think, would be at the top. What makes a brand successful is how it's built and how it's developed. So I always talk about what is the unseen is like the infrastructure of a brand, right? If we want to look at it like almost like a building. So there's under the ground, there's infrastructure, right? So that way, when a storm hits, when whatever kind of weather, whatever weather, right? Forecast, like that building is not going to come crashing down, right? So the way I like to like just illustrate it is like there's always going to be trends and fads, right? But if it's built with the infrastructure that there is a strategy behind that branding, then no storm, no trend right next year is going to have it come crumbling down. So what I like to talk about is the difference between evergreen branding. There's sometimes elements that you can use in campaigns that are like seasonal, such as, for example, like I love the graphic you created for this summit, right? Using those gradient tones. Maybe 5 years from now, those gradient tones won't apply. However, you branded it in a way where that type, right, that typography that you're using, you're kind of making it proprietary to the summit, so you can follow that through. And then that way too, it keeps things fresh, yet you keep that consistency in the marketing so that you keep your audience's loyalty, right? So yeah, that's just overall. I love to talk about the brand like it's like a building, right? It's really nice to also think of like other categories like feng shui. Like I'm always thinking of feng shui. Say I'm building a website. How do I want someone to feel, when they come to that site? Am I going to bombard them with a lot of information so they're only on there 2 seconds and they can't wait to get off my page? Or do I create a resting place? So in feng shui, if you have like a really busy bookshelf, for example, a nice way to go about it to create that rest for your eye is to just clear out one shelf, and maybe put a plant, put like a frame, So following that same theory, the same philosophy of feng shui, I love to make that connection in creating digital spaces such as a website, right? So imagine you're walking into a building, you're walking into a room, you're walking into that brand, and what's the brand essence? So there's just a lot that gets baked into a brand that you don't necessarily see, right? So I like to talk about like the iceberg, right? Like the logo is kind of like that iceberg, but the branding is not a logo. That's just one of the parts of the brand, correct? So several years back, the Oxford word of the year, fascinatingly enough, was an emoji instead of a word. And when I heard that, I was like, well, that is what a logo is, right? A logo is something that you look at in a glance, right? That communicates instantly, just as an emoji. So if you're in the supermarket and you're texting someone back and you don't have time to, you're like next to the cashier, you're gonna send what? An emoji. It's quick. That's what a logo is for your branding. So yeah, I think I really enjoy to just like educating entrepreneurs and getting into this new coaching sphere, right? It's very different looking at it from like a marketing consultant versus like a brand coach. Like even that just has a very different feel. So I'm really enjoying this new leadership territory that we've all, been blessed to stumble into, right? Or maybe I stumbled into. I don't know if you did your research and finding it. So I love to educate entrepreneurs on how it's their actual responsibility to even protect their branding, right? So anyone that is dealing with your brand, you provide them, and it's your responsibility as the founder, right, to provide them with your style guide, with how to handle your logo. It's almost like I'm going to provide you with a gadget, but I'm going to give you the manual in order for you to know how to use that gadget, right? And then it even like really dumbs it down sometimes, like you need 2 inches space next to my logo or something along those lines, right? And then they like in a style guide, like it'll stretch out the logo left and right and just do like X's on it just to show, again, visually, right? Like don't handle the logo in that way. And so to have those like brand parameters or guidelines, like that's a really essential document that I always implore entrepreneurs to have on hand. So
yeah, definitely. You don't want to send out your logo to some company and they will start stretching it or putting it next to another logo. You've got to have those brand guidelines to allow the logo to live and prosper and stand out. And that it's one of the most important things when you start out. So can you tell us about what is a brand strategy? Because a lot of people think that, yes, there is a logo, there are colors, there are different archetypes and all of that. But how do you create and what is a brand strategy?
So you can have so there's the business model and then there's the creative direction. I feel like with the strategy, it kind of fuses the two, right? So I like to refer to it as the creative direction. So for example, we talk about the difference in like the style spectrum, right? You have from the extreme side of like super casual, very friendly, right, to extremely corporate, very refined, right? And like, where does the brand fall into that, right? And then we just go through that list and just put in there, like, where do you want that to fall, right? And then we reverse engineer. So say you're like a photographer for what are they called, like maternity shoots or something like that. Yeah. So say you want to take a creative direction of like maybe on the rustic side, you know, like so we think of like textures, we think of like burlap, we think of what is the baby going to be wrapped in? Is it going to be floral? Is it, you know what I mean? Or is it super sleek and clean and modern and refined?
Yeah.
So all of that in the collaborating, right? We come up with that brand strategy, right? Or creative direction. And I want to make it clear that we're talking here about the visual branding. Another thing I really wanted to make sure that before we run out of time that I touch on is the importance of a logo scalability. So in studying like the anatomy of what is a logo has two parts. One is a logo mark. So for example, with Emperor's Media, right? The logo mark is the sphere with the design in the middle. And then the logo type is the actual font used to write Emperor's Media, correct? You put them together for long enough, right? Where people then start recognizing just the logo mark alone, suddenly you've built brand power, right? So that takes time, and that takes you having those touch points, right? And then the scalability is really cool. Like, it ought to read the same way on a gigantic, big old billboard, the same way as it would read as the size of a pencil eraser. So just think of that extreme scalability. The other thing is to have it be reversible, right? So we always want to look at our branding in like a monochromatic scale, like black and white, right? In order to see the tonality. Because oftentimes people that say are colorblind, right? And you have two tonalities that are very close. You might be able to read it just fine, might be legible for you, but somebody else out there, because of the two tonalities and they're not able to see the color, right? It's going to not be legible for them. So there's just a lot to take in. Do you want to go through the questions? Because I can talk for like hours.
Yes. But this is a brand strategy, isn't it? It's a strategizing in detail and going through stages one by one through your website, through your business, through your behavior, the way how you, what's your voice, what's your story. So it's all brand strategy. So fantastic that you started to talk about that. So how do you build a brand that people love?
Every brand is like a person, right? It's like every human being has a unique fingerprint. You know, the truer a brand can be to itself, the more they're going to be successful with the results, right? And so what I can speak about is me personally when I did my branding for Johara. So again, Johara means jewel. It talks on the philosophy of the different facets of what a brand is, right? So like one facet could be me in person. You get to meet me, I get to hug you, get to hear my voice. It's like an essence of my brand, right? Say I give you a business card and it feels like, you know, like very velvety and you love it, you know, that's another touch point right there. So when I designed my branding, I made sure to go out and find like tangible items that inspire me. Like, I really like this little like Aladdin, like, I don't know. I just wanted to create something with like an exotic kind of feel. You know what I mean? So I started gathering like things that I'm so inspired by. I'm like, how do I show this in my branding? You know, like, I don't even know the name of this Egyptian goddess, but look how cool this is. I don't know. Like, I was just so inspired. And so that's like what went into my personal branding is like ancient Egypt with the nice geographical lines of like Native American, you know, and it's really speaking about me, I was born in Cairo, and then my family came to the States. And so I love the richness of ancient Egypt. And then like being that, like the lines of Native American like patterns I'm really inspired by that. And so to fuse the two, people might not notice that, but that's what's baked into my branding. So all they get is like, oh, it has an exotic feel, I'm like, perfect. That's exactly what I was going for, So, so yeah, every single case I think is very unique. And it's great to study our competitors, but at the same time, it's like you learn the rules in order to effectively break them, right? And that's how you get that beautiful balance of like still staying in the realm, but standing out, right? Standing out from the competitors. So
yeah. So it's the same. I think so, very very similar to what Carlene mentioned. Like, what do you love? Like,
mm-hmm.
and being authentic, like you said, being authentic with yourself, who you are, and things that you love, and in your case are beautiful items, elegant items. So that's priceless, isn't it, for branding?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it's almost like the little secret, right? It's like for me, it's like what's behind it is like an amethyst, and it's multifaceted. And it helps me also when I, get in an elevator with someone. There's so much like, how am I going to, because, like this is our world. Well, it's my world, our world. We can talk about it for until we turn blue in the face, right? But how do we give someone in a nice little package, right? Enough information that could really serve them, right? And so I always love to marry the way the brain works, like psychology. If you combine psychology with business, art, and design, you have branding. You know what I mean? That's what branding is. Ultimately, it's visual communication. So another cool strategy I like to do with clients is if we collaborate on a tagline, then we reverse engineer that. So the messaging, so the copy then creates the visual. So you can go in reverse ways. That's why I love mood boards too. So you can start with the visual, kind of like what I just showed you guys, like my inspirational elements, right? I could create a mood board with like different pieces of fabric, different pieces of paper. I could create a shelf with different items, right? And that'd be my inspiration, right? The harvest of like the inspiration, right? Or some clients that are more on the analytical side, right? Like we talk about style flexing, right? There's like left brain, right brain too. If someone's more analytical, they tend to feel safer and more comfortable to work in the reverse of taking copy. So like in working with a copywriter, we really finesse and like get the copy and the messaging. And then we use visual communication to speak that messaging, right? Because here's something really cool. So Brené Brown always talks about like clear is kind, like simplicity is solid, right? Simplicity is elegance, right? It's a lot harder to take something that's very complex and boil it all down to something very sleek and refined, right? And when we do that, when we provide our audience with content in this way, right, it's almost like a resting place. It's almost like a gift. So imagine just scrolling, right? Too much stimuli, too much information. And then you see a graphic that like, have you ever gone to those hotels? I mean, they don't do it anymore, but remember back in the day, they would take a piece of chocolate and put it on top of the pillow. And then it just made that piece of chocolate all the more yummy because it's got that fluffy white space, And so to have something like that, say it's your tagline, say it's a quote that you really want to just put out there. How are you going to use design to make it a restful place for that person's eye, right? So that in the morning, they're like, I like this. Let me take a moment to read it. Because the way that we take in information is first we see color, then we see shape, then we see numbers. And then if we have any more mental capacity, then we'll consider reading. So oftentimes we put things out there thinking our audience will see everything, when in actuality, it can fall through the cracks.
Yes. I hope everyone is taking notes, because this is crucial. This is crucial for branding. Amazing, amazing. Oh my goodness. So we touched a little bit on having your audience or speaking the right language to your audience. So what is your best secret to creating your niche, and how do you find that? How do you figure out your niche?
So it's a little counterintuitive. I think if we sat down and tried to figure out the niche, it will be a lot harder. It's almost like for me, when I think in that way, it gets me like a little bit of the perfectionism, like analysis paralysis. So I always say like action will create clarity. You know, so when I first started out, I didn't have my particular niche now. You know, my niche right now is very much so like luxury branding. Sure, I have the corporate background. However, what I do enjoy is working with the one-on-one clients, right? It just makes it more fun when I work with coaches and like small business owners. Why? Because of the turnaround time. Because we can literally collaborate from our just sheer thought. We can birth a brand, right? And it's becoming tangible in a short period of time versus when you work with the big corporations, you know, they have to present it and this executive is saying, make this change. And so projects just end up taking a lot longer and dragging on. And so it's just so much more fun when I get to work with like small business owners. And then just to like even get someone in like a third party where they can create the measurements and the like the numbers, like the analytics, where they can really see from the before and the after, right? Because I'm not the like numbers conversion person. However, when somebody does apply that to the graphics that I create, they can see that, you know, it does yield results.
Worked.
It does get the clickability. And it's really because of so much finessing and so much of the studying, right? Like we have the power to lead someone's eye somewhere. Oftentimes we don't think like that, right? But with shape, with color, with visual information, we have so much power and we get to communicate. And so that's why I love branding.
Yes, yes. And
someone is asking about the protection of a brand. So I would love to just quickly touch on that.
That's right.
So if you guys remember, I was talking about the guidelines, like having that style guide, right? And so you have your proprietary colors, right? Your proprietary Pantone colors. And then you have your proprietary type, right? So if anyone is going to be dealing with your brand, say you're sponsoring an event, you want to provide them with that documentation as well. And then they get to follow, right, those instructions. Ultimately, you can have a brand book of 40, 60 pages, but really what I'm finding to be more effective, right, again, going from that mentality of like quick, simple, clear, right, is a one pager. It's really all you need, right? It's like a resume. You don't need three, you just need one page. Concise it, right? Just make it concise. Style guide, call it, it's got different names, correct style guide, parameters, brand book,
brand guidelines. Yeah,
it's essentially all the same thing, but that is a tool that you use to protect your branding.
Yeah, it's basically like a package of what your brand looks like and what are the icons and graphics that company is going to use in order to market your business.
Exactly. The elements. You got it.
There is also a question about trademarking our brands. Would you like to answer that?
Yeah, okay. So I work with a few different like attorneys, trademark attorneys. A big company right now that really seems to work well is Legal Shield. So that's like an app. So but you can do a quick search in terms of a trademark, but absolutely you want to make sure that your brand name is not trademark and it is available, right? And if someone actually used it before but it isn't trademarked, then that's up for grabs. And to remember, like, that's vice versa as well. Just because you're using a brand name does not mean that you have it like trademarked. So until you trademark it, then that's really you'll own it when you trademark the name. And then make sure to like they have your information up to date, because sometimes it will expire after a certain amount of years. And so to also look into like, is this trademark nationwide? Is it international? So there's a whole like array of questions you want to ask in terms of the trademark. And then within the trademark too, you have the word, right? The trademark, the word, and then you have the mark, so the logo. So you actually end up having like two trademarks, right? One is the visual, and then one is the actual name of the brand. Yeah. Does that answer it? I'm not sure who asked that question, but I hope that answers.
Please let us know if that's satisfactory. Dottie says yes, she's giving you a medal and thumbs up. Yeah. Wonderful.
And my free gift today is I'm happy to do a 20-minute brand audit for anybody who is interested, or a website critique. So that is available to everybody. Your audience only, Edith, exclusive to you and your people.
My audience only if you have signed up for this summit. If you would like to share the link, I think it was shared at the beginning of the chat. The link to this summit, share it out to your friends and family. So if they register, they could also get access to the gifts that our speakers are giving. So this is the.
Oh, thank you so much. Perfect. I was just messaging it. Are there any questions like here that I could answer? Yeah. We have a ton of other questions, but I want to make it relevant to everybody here. So if anybody has a question, I'd be happy to answer it.
Yeah, you guys unmute and speak out, or type in the chat if you have any questions. And you are welcome to hop on the camera and connect with our speakers. You know how important it is to be present in those seminars, those summits, and interact with everybody else, because who knows, you don't know where your next customer is coming from, who is going to need your services next. So please do share your information and ask questions. Tammy is asking, should we copyright, and how do we do it?
Copyright, what exactly? Like trademark? I mean, copyright your tagline? Like, what do you refer to?
Let us know, Tammy. Logo.
Okay, so the logo would be considered a trademark. So the trademark would be the logo type, right? The word, and then the mark, so the logo mark. So think of Nike, right? They have like the bold italicized font, and it says Nike, right? Big bold letters. And then you have the swoosh, right? The swoosh is the logo mark. Nike is the logo type. Essentially, in a trademark, you will have both, as ultimately that is the anatomy of a logo in itself, right? It's the two parts.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Julianne, for this very informative part. And there are questions. Yeah, the questions are coming in. In a very small business, and we have a logo. We are starting to create content. We are creating various presentations, publications of videos. Yeah. Each one. Does one branding mean every presentation or video? It's everything, I would imagine. Everything is considered a branding.
Yes. So when it comes to branding, consistency is king. I mean, they refer to marketing as well. Again, there is a difference between your core identity, right? The identity of your branding that is evergreen, versus having a campaign, versus having some sort of seasonal, initiative. So there's two different ways to look at it. You can definitely follow through with the same color palette, or if it's good.
And feel free to connect with Julianne, and she can tell you more about it. We have run out of time, and thank you so much for your presence and for your wealth of knowledge. It's been fantastic having you on this summit. Really
Thank you so
appreciate your
much.
support.
Thank you.
Thank
Hopefully I
you.
kept it a bit different, a bit interesting. So count on me to make it a little different.
Totally. Thank you. Mwah, mwah,
Bye, everybody.
mwah.